trading, knowledge is power, and lack of knowledge in what you're doing can be costly, very costly. So you need a solid foundation of quality market education. Whether you're new to trading or a seasoned veteran looking to add advanced strategies to your arsenal, there's always something to learn and something to improve on. And now you can access the same knowledge that professional traders receive with Market Rebellion's Trading Education. I'm Bill Johnson, Head of Options Education here at Market Rebellion, and we've assembled a comprehensive curriculum based on decades of real trading experience, covering everything you need to know about trading options from beginner to advanced. We go way beyond the nuts and bolts of options theory to teach you how to apply specific trading strategies and the techniques needed to adapt your trades when markets shift. Regardless of your goals, you'll gain access to the education you need with easy-to-consume lessons so you can learn to trade with confidence, enhance your knowledge, and master the practical skills required for market success. So please join us for in-depth trading education only from Market Rebellion. Good morning, Market Rebels. And I'm sure you're saying, why is it morning? It's supposed to be 4 p.m. Well, once again, Stu, we had to shift this to not only a different time, but a different date. We've got some other obligations. So today is actually the 6th of May. Yesterday was Cinco de Mayo. Does the 6th of May ring a bell to you?
This is the, let's see, how many years is it? I guess it's the 15th year anniversary of the Flash crash.
Very good. Little market history there for anybody who might remember that. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I think the Dow was down about 1,000 points in 30 minutes or something.
34 minutes. I think it was like 998 or 996. Yeah, it was 1,000 points.
Yeah, it was basically 1,000 points. I was just kind
rallied back. I watched the whole thing unfold.
Oh, I did too. Or you're going with something. I just thought something was wrong with the system, which I guess it is, but I didn't think that those were real quotes. I'm going, this is just bizarre.
Yeah. How about all the trades that were canceled on that day?
I know.
Can you imagine buying the stock at like $65 and then selling it at 80? And oh, by the way, we canceled
the trade.
Now it's trading at 100. Really? You're going to do that to me?
Oh, yeah. I'll bet there's still lawsuits going on about that.
Could be
crazy. One more crazy episode in stock market history. Yeah. So anyway, it is actually Tuesday morning. Normally we're on at Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern. It's now Tuesday at 8:30. So we're doing this quite a bit earlier, but sometimes that happens. But anyway, we got another really good topic here, Stu, on board because, and I decided to do this, and you'll know where we're going once I start the presentation, but we've been getting this a lot in Q&A. And we just think we got to make real sure that people understand this. Very big disconnect. So let's start off with our Chalk Talk question, which is our little thought-provoking question for anyone who may be new. So here you go. A May $100 call is better than a May $105 call. True or false? And the key word to focus on there, obviously, is the word better.
Yeah, how about that?
Let's just talk real quickly here, Stu. What might be a reason why somebody says the 100 call is better than the 105?
Well, obviously on the surface, it gives you the right to buy the stock lower than the 105.
Right. Going to have more intrinsic value, all things equal, or be the first one to end up with intrinsic value if they're both out of the money. A lot of different ways we could spin that. But what might be a reason why the 105 call, somebody might make an argument that it's better?
Maybe they're reaching for the lower price. Maybe they're reaching for a lower delta. Maybe they're reaching for a bigger tail. Could be, the list goes on, Bill.
Exactly. The leverage goes, there's lots of reasons that they could. But what we're trying to show here is, yes, you can always pick out a single characteristic and say it's better because of this. Well, it's completely unfair because options have a lot of moving parts to pick out one thing
Many characteristics. We
any
call them
characteristic, and say, therefore, because I deem this to be better than anything else you could ever see, it's therefore better. It's just definitively better. And we hear this all the time. So,
you can even spin that into, I'm thinking out loud here, guys. Um, asset classes. Which one's better? Is a stock better? Or is an option
or
better?
T-bill. Yeah, T-bill's
Is a T-bill
guaranteed, but then
better?
you
Is a
get lower
bond better?
rates.
Is it the 3 month or is it the 1 year? Is it Bitcoin or is it Solana or whatever that is? I mean, it just goes on and on and on.
Right.
It's really tough to say better. Well, better for you might not be better for me. I mean,
right.
I'm never going to be that judge.
Right. And that's what we're going to show you is why. Because people like to pound the table and say, I say this is better and therefore that's just the way it is. But we want to show you why that could never be true.
We're going to show
you
it
have
to you.
to qualify it. So our topic for today is forget the word better. If you get nothing else.
Our Q&A people have heard me say that a lot, right, Bill?
Our Q&A people know this very well.
It is just not part of my universe. All right. This is better just to me in this world of what we do and options. It just doesn't exist.
But we still have to bring this up. We have a lot of new people coming on board, and we still see these questions creeping in saying, well, which is better? So if you get nothing else from this presentation, the one thing we want you to get, you might not understand why, but at least you'll be heading in the right direction, is just wad this thing up, turn into a little origami bird there, and send it on its way. Get it out of your vocabulary. But now we want to find out.
Bill, time out.
Yo.
Do I look like Warren Buffett? You know how he was doing the Coke thing on his annual meeting?
I just saw that. It kind of does look like it.
Right? No, okay. Sorry, man. Got
it. So we want to explain why. And again, this is one of the things that we find out that people who, just bang on about this is better than this because of one characteristic or even a couple, but it's a really unfair assessment. They're just singling out something that they feel is better and therefore trying to push it off onto everybody else. So what we want to show you is why this cannot be true, this whole idea that something is better than another. So the questions that we get a lot are things like, what's the best strategy? I wish I could answer it. What's the best strike? Best expiration? What's the best delta?
Oh, no.
What's better versus options versus stock?
Mm-hmm.
Or as you mentioned, options versus bond. This isn't just a topic just limited to the options. A lot of people think that it is. Pick stock versus options, stock versus
or anything, Bill. How about we use that dumb example in Q&A sometimes. It's it's like the Ferrari versus pick 'em. Who knows, right? The Toyota. Which one's better?
You can't. Right. We're gonna find out if all things equal. Sure, people would say the Ferrari is better, but they're not equal. That whole idea of it being better gets priced into it. We're going to find out that's really the crux of the argument, is that it's going to get priced into that. So anything that any qualification you might want to say is better, that's fine. That might be true, but don't think that it's coming for free.
No.
All right. So the idea here is forget the word better. And as we kind of alluded to, if something is better, and there are things, just like we could say, yes, the $100 call gives you the right to pay less for the stock. It'll have more intrinsic value or be the first to gain intrinsic value. There's lots of reasons we could say it's better. If that's true, though, its price is going to rise. And in other words, you must pay for the benefits. This is one of the key points to this entire presentation. If you want to make an argument that something is better, fine, make it. And if you can justify that it's better, understand it's going to come with a higher price. And when that happens, you can no longer say it's better.
There's got to be some...
You've paid for it.
There's got to be some equilibrium somewhere along the line that's going to make the better one not better, right? I mean,
correct. That's one of the most basic tenets in all of economics or financial theory, this whole point of equilibrium, and that is the very function of price. Price is the way, it's like a point spread in a football game. I'm going to show kind of an example later in this presentation about that, but that's what's making it balance. And that's what these people completely forget. That as soon as you say this is better because of this, all right, that might be true, but you just paid for it, so now it's no longer true. So here's a lot of times I like to use out of industry examples because people think that this just exists with options or whatever. But take a look at this. I pulled this up off of eBay, and we have two identical things here. MX Master 3S, fabulous mouse, by the way, have one right here. But at any rate, this one is $75 with $9 delivery, and this one's $94.50 with free delivery.
Now, let me just ask you a question here. This is a real shot of real eBay listings?
Yes.
Like you didn't AI?
Nope.
Okay.
These are real, and they're not hard to find. What is hard is you have to make sure that they are absolutely standardized things, that they are the exact things. They're both brand new. It's the same model. But in the stock market, right, a May $100 call is a May $100 call. In the language of finance, it's called fungible. How's that for a word? And it just means that
That's a big word.
it's a big word. That means that my 100 shares of Microsoft is exactly the same as yours.
Mm-hmm.
Or my May $100 call is exactly the same as yours. And that's what allows us to make comparisons. So now, Stu,
yeah,
we're going to do some role play. I'm going to pound the table. It's better to have free delivery.
Yeah, man, I love free delivery.
I mean, it's
free is for me. Bring it.
It's just definitive. You can't argue it. Pound.
Free delivery.
You got to look for free delivery. It's the best. And I'm exaggerating this because this is what it sounds like to Stu and me when we hear these people saying, oh no, this is better. This just is. It's just better. All right. But let's say all things being equal, it's better. So Stu, which of these two auctions here, if you're going to buy this cool little mouse, would you pick?
I'm going to pick the one that's not better. I'm going to pick the one that's lower in price, even though I have to pay for delivery. Look, price is.
So you're saying you would pay you would pay $9 for delivery?
That's correct, Bill.
That's crazy. You're not understanding it. Free delivery is better. There's that word, better. What does that tell you?
Well, it tells me that the dollars
are probably going to pay for it.
Yeah.
Right. And actually, you'll see this a lot in some auctions. They will be exactly the same. One might be $100 with $5 delivery, and another is $105 with free delivery. And they do that just because some people are just so bent about I'm never paying for. I'm not going to pay for shipping, and they say, all right, fine. They just completely miss the role of price. So what Stu is saying, if you would pay 75 plus 9, that's 84. But you can pay $94.50. So here's a case where not only are you paying for the benefits, but you're actually paying more for the good. That's the only way you could justify that it's more, but you are absolutely paying for the delivery. Even though it says free here, it's not. It's built into the price. That's kind of the whole crux of this presentation. It will get factored into the price. And that's the point that everybody who makes this argument misses. So if you just look at those, again, all things equal, yes, free delivery is better. But to an options trader, see, that was interesting. That's why, and of course I knew he'd get it. He's going to look at price. He's going to say, well, it's still $84. I don't care what you call it. Because how else could we look at this? You could make this mathematically the same in your head, that number says 84 and that number says 0. And now we're comparing free delivery to free delivery. See, but people don't see it that way. They go, oh, this characteristic of free is better, and it just is across the board. It's definitively true. You can't argue it.
Let's tie this into that word that we used before with the whole benefit thing. So in this case, what's going on? So the free delivery is cool, right? We love free delivery, and that's a benefit. But what's going on here is the benefit has a price.
The benefit has a price, and it's been baked in.
And the price of that benefit is too high.
In this instance, it's actually too high to where, like Stu said, I would actually go for the one that's not best. Of course, he was being facetious, meaning because he would, if you want to just make this point that free delivery is the best, he's like, okay, so what? I'm not going for it. Why? Because the price for that free is too high.
And it's all relative. See, it's like you wouldn't really know that if you only had one or the other, right? But You can
Right.
see both, and when you see them both, you can now say it's too high.
And we're going to talk about that in just a second. We're going to look at that exact idea in the options market. But we want to make real sure that people understand that if you're paying for the benefit, how could you possibly be calling it a benefit? So here's another one. Stu, I'm going to send you $100 a month, uh, every single month. Is that a benefit?
Yeah.
Okay. But of course, I'm not going to do that for free. I'm going to charge you, and I'm going to charge you $100 for that.
I got to pay for that, Bill?
See, now you say, well, then why is it a benefit? And I say, well, you're not understanding it. You're getting money. You're getting money sent to you. What are you not seeing here? See, that's the argument that Stu and I hear when people say, but this is better. And we're like, well, but you're not accounting for the price.
Here's the easy price on that, right? So if I pay 99 to get 100, that's good, right? But if I
You take that
to get 100, that's not good. So which one's better?
See, the price, that's the whole point. We have to account for the price. So now with this little backdrop, let's do a quick little plug here for marketrebellion.com/get started. Tremendous amount of videos, articles on topics just like this to help you make better decisions. I can't tell you that there are so much bad information out there. So many people who are unqualified, but yet post video, have YouTube channels out there talking about, well, this is better and this is what you need to do.
This one's better. This one works. This one
right.
does it.
And you need to realize it is just not going to be true. So check that out. Absolutely free. You're not paying for that benefit. That is truly free. So now let's take a look at this one. Let's do a little example here. Stu, what's the best? The May $100 call or the May 105 call? Now, I'm going to qualify it because I know that you understand this. All things being equal, and the reason I have to say that is I'm assuming that they are the same price. All right, so all things being equal, which one of those is better?
The May 100 call.
The 100. Because now you can't say, well, the 105 is cheaper and I'm looking for leverage. All things equal. Now we can see clearly that the right to pay 100 is better than the right to pay 105.
Yeah, of course. $5 better.
And pick a stock price. Pick any stock price.
Doesn't matter.
The $100 call either has more intrinsic value or it will be the first to gain intrinsic value. So no matter how you cut it, except there's a problem. Because I said all things being equal, and guess what? We just identified the May $100 call as being better. I saw it. You saw it. John and Pete saw it. Everybody sees it, and everybody wants better. What does that mean? Well, traders understand that the $100 call is better, all things equal, than the 105.
North.
And so what does that mean? It means that traders will compete to own the $100 call over the 105.
Yeah.
So think of it this way. If there's free money on the table, there's a $10 bill and there's a $100 bill, which one are you reaching for, Stu? You're going to reach for the $100 bill. Well, so is everybody else. That's where all the action is going to take place. That's what's happening here. People are looking at this. In this case, it's the right to pay less, but it's the more valuable strike, all things equal. And they're saying, okay, so the competition is going to be, I want that one. And so how do we break the tie? There's not an unlimited number for sale. Well, in the language of finance, we will bid the $100 call's price higher. And therefore, look at what happens. Higher means what? You're paying for the benefit. And once you're paying for the benefit, you can no longer say it's better. You're allowed to say it's different. Or you might say it's better for me for my purposes right now. Maybe next week it won't be. That's okay. But you can't just say it's definitely better across the board, no argument about it. It's just flat out wrong. So if the $100 call that we identified as being best is also a lower price, then it sets up an arbitrage.
And we're just making an example out of the extreme here, people.
Right. This would never happen in the markets. But we're saying, let's just say, we're trying to show why it wouldn't, or if it did, why it wouldn't last very long. So let's do a quick recap of what arbitrage is. There's two conditions. It has to be something that generates a guaranteed profit, But something that a lot of people miss is that there has to be no cash outlay. It's self-financing. And the reason that's important is otherwise you could say, hey, Stu, I bought a T-bill for 95 and it matured to 100. It was a guaranteed profit and therefore I'm an arbitrager. Well, no, you're not, because you had to use your money.
You had to buy it.
You had to buy it and you had to be without that money. There's an opportunity cost.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it's a guaranteed asset, but that's not an ARB. It's a little different, actually quite a lot different. But what it sets up, if the $100 call were cheaper, then here's what's going to happen. So now we've got the $100 call, and we know here's our bend. Right, we get our bend at the strike. Here's the 105. Now, the way that I've drawn this, it looks like the $100 call might be trading for 3, and the 105 is trading for 5. So think about it. We identified that the $100 call, all things equal, is better than the 105.
So in this example, the 105 is the black one.
105 is the black one, yes.
Got it.
So we've identified this hypothetical fantasy situation where not only is the 100 better, but you pay less for it. And if that were true, if that ever happened, everybody's going to say, well, hold on a second. My maximum loss is less, and my maximum gain is more. We can see that the red line sits above the black line for all stock prices. See, no matter which stock price you pick, you're either losing less. Stock price at 95, we lose 3 on the red line, but we lose 5 on the black line. Over here, if the stock is 110, we break even with the 105, but we're up 10 over here, or 10 minus 3, we're up 7. So no matter what stock price you pick, the red line outperforms. What does that tell you? Everybody's going to want it. So at a minimum, in the real world, we would buy the 100 and sell the 105. But for right now, let's just assume that everybody is buying that 100. What happens? Price gets bid higher.
I'm going to go higher in price.
So that means that that curve is going to sink lower. Let's just look at several points. Let's say that it gets to where it's the same price as the 105. Now we have the same downside, in this case, $5, but the 100 call still has a benefit. We see that the break even is 105, but on the 105 call, it's 110. So the red line sits above the black for all regions out here, not out here, but there is still a zone. It can't do worse, but it can do better, I guess would be a good way to put it. So now, relatively speaking, I still like the 100. So what are we going to do? The rush is on to buy what? The 100. So the price is going to continue higher. And now something interesting has happened. We've talked about this before. What do you notice here, Stu? What's the key point that I'm looking at, do you think?
Begins with a B and it ends with an N. Maybe a break-even point. No. This is where the what's the name of that word?
Right here?
Yeah,
crossover point.
Crossover, right.
All right, so that now becomes significant. A crossover point is where they are both equal.
And you're always going to have crossover points.
At least one, correct. You will always have one. Now think about that. That's a strong statement. You will always have at least one, and that is a mathematical, definitive proof that we can no longer say that one is better. Even though I was just pounding the table, let's do the 100 call is better, the $100 call is better, not if you have to pay for those benefits. And the reason we can see that is to the left of this blue dotted line, the black line sits above the red.
Yeah.
So now we would say, well, gee, if the stock falls, I'd rather be on the black line. I'd rather have the 105 call. However, if the stock is to the right of the blue line, now we can see the red line sits above the black, and I'd rather have the 100 call.
Right.
So am I more about maximizing the gains or maybe protecting the downside?
Minimizing or
but
mitigating.
I cannot have both. In the first case, when we saw that the red line was always above, I had both. And you don't get to have all winning situations across all stock prices.
Look, you just have to remember, everyone, that like there is a benefit, but there's a price to the
There's a
benefit.
price for the benefit. And if you have to pay for the benefit, it's no longer a benefit. It's
Well, if
just
you have
that
to
simple.
pay more than the benefit is worth, I'm
Or
just
more than the
trying to
benefit
be
is worth. Right.
the trader here, right? It's just if you have to pay more than the benefit is actually worth, which can also be, subjective sometimes, especially when you're talking about cars, right? I mean, what is that benefit worth? I mean, everybody's going to have like a little bit different answer, which is yet another reason why you really can't say better.
And another reason why market prices fluctuate. Now, interesting you said that, Stu. I actually thought about that as well. To make the point, because price is really what equalizes it, could it be possible we could make a price too high? Right? I don't care what benefit you want to tell me that a Ferrari is better than a Toyota. If it costs $100 trillion, I doubt anybody would say it's worth it.
Or some number. I mean, make a number up. It's some number.
I just did. I'm just saying, if you go to an extreme, there will be a point where people say it's not worth it.
Yeah.
So now you can no longer say it's always better. We have to say it's better at this price, or at least in my view. But watch this. What could I do in this case? Now here we're literally off the charts, but now I've made the price too big. So let me ask you a little trading floor question, Stu. We've got the 100 call here in red. I got the 105 call in black. What's the most that those prices could differ by?
$5.
Exactly. And now I've made it differ by about $7. So think about this. If Stu owns the $100 call and I own the 105 call, it's the same expiration, the same stock. I have the right to pay 100. Stu has the right to, I think I said, Stu has the 100. He can pay 100. I can pay 105. But it's the same stock and the same time to expiration.
Yeah.
So there's only now, yes, Stu does have a benefit, but how big is that benefit? At best, $5.
Yeah, right.
So the market shouldn't say, well, I'm willing to give you 6 or 7 for it.
So this would be like in a vertical spread world, this would be like buying the vertical spread for a credit. Right? This would be like buying them at 5 and selling them at 7 and buying the $5 vertical for a $2 credit. It's not going to happen. Now,
I think actually in this one, because we've got I think that was the first one. Here we're actually, you'd want to buy the 105. You'd get the right. You buy the
yeah, just in general. I'm just,
right. It's going to set up an ARB. So you have to. So in this case,
right. See, that would be an ARB, and right, that fits what we're doing. That fits the whole ARB definition, right? If you're paying 5 and selling at 7, you're not really laying out any cash. We're not talking about margin or anything. And that would be free money, right? So the markets are an auction market. The markets aren't going to let that action. Now look, you can leg into this and create a credit on the vertical, but that's not this, right? That's legging into it, taking market risk.
Right.
That's not what we're doing here.
That's taking risk through the process. Right. You can't buy shares at 100 and sell them at 105 and say it's an ARB because I got a profit. No, you took risk and you made money. But the thing here is that notice that now we've flipped. Now the black line sits above the red for all stock prices. See, in the first case, the red line sat above the black. We said that was too good to be true. But it can also be the reverse. So which of these two strikes now, Stu, would you buy if you had to buy a call?
I'm looking at the black one. Which one's the black one? The 105.
But wait a minute. You're not getting this, Stu. The 100 is better. It gives you the right to pay less. What are you not under? It just is. It's just better. See, I hope I'm doing this to hopefully make the point to people. Stu is accounting for the price. And for the benefits, which that best is $5, if he has to pay 7 for it, he's better off with the less valuable strike because it's too cheap or because the 100 is too expensive. It's always this notion of looking at them relative to each other.
And what else am I doing, Bill? If I'm buying a 105,
yeah, we're going to act. I knew you'd get there. Took the words right out of my mouth. Now, up until this point, I said we were going to make the $100. I started with the $100 call too cheap, and we kept making it more expensive as if it was the only thing that moved. You would also have people that might say, you know what, relatively speaking, the 105 call is a little expensive. Let me do some covered calls and get some selling pressure there. But somebody like Stu on the floor is going to say, why do them independently? Take them on both sides.
Yeah,
And so he would buy the 100, not in this case, but in the original case, buy the 100 and sell the 105.
for sure. Every day, all day.
And so what's going to happen here? Yeah, the arbitrageurs will just trade the vertical spread. So you buy the 100 call, sell the 105, and that gives you a guaranteed profit. And when does it stop? Once the $100 call becomes more expensive than the 105, but now we can no longer say it's better. So you just keep coming right back into the same loop. So let's say that the 100 call was 3 and the 105 call was 5. This was the first example that we saw. We're getting the beneficial strike and we're paying less money for it. So we get this net credit of 2. Now, normally when you get a credit spread, you have an obligation because you're selling the more valuable strike. Here we're buying it. We are owning the more valuable strike and we're getting paid to do it. So this is like me saying, hey, Stu, I'll buy your 100 shares of Microsoft. How much will you pay me? You go, why would I pay you to take my shares? That's what's happening here. And that's why you shouldn't expect it to see it in the market. So what would happen is
No, what exchange can I go to?
Hey, you let me know when you find it.
Is there one around that I could sign up?
Well, apparently there is, because we still hear this where people saying that something is better. And if it's truly better without accounting for price, this is kind of what they're implying, that there's an ARB setup. So notice that the 0 line right here, okay, that horizontal line right there is break even. So all risk graphs will sit partially below or partially above. If they sit entirely above or entirely below, it's an ARB. So this would be Stu on the floor buying that 100, selling the 105, and getting paid all day. Why would he stop at one spread? Right? Why would he stop at 50? Why would he, if there's a pile of $100 bills lying on the street, why would you say I'll just pick up one?
The floor officials are going to come drag me off the floor.
But not only, the only problem with that is that Stu's not going to be the only one that identified this. In today's world, it'll be the algos and every other trader on the floor. There's going to be a mad dash to buy this spread for a credit. And what's going to happen? We'll ask our YouTube viewers out there, what's going to happen? Price is going to go up, which means that the risk graph does what? Sinks down until part is below the red dotted line and part is above. Now we could do the same argument. If I kept pushing price too high, the entire black curve would sit below the red.
Now see, this one's buying them at 2.
We could just flip that. We were on the opposite side of the trade now, and now it would lift.
Yeah.
So now that they're in here, half is below, half is above. Which is better? I can't say. And the reason I can't say is because of price. And so again, just to make sure people understand, if somebody comes and starts pounding the table, you're not getting this. The $100 call is better. It gives you the right to pay less. You've got more intrinsic value. What are you not getting here? What that person's not getting is that there's a price for those benefits. And
Bill, I'm thinking of I'm going to throw in a little plug for Ryan's Iron Condor class.
Sure.
Many people. So the Iron Condor, right? You say you're selling the out of the money put spread. You're selling the out of the money cost spread, selling the out of the money put spread. So maybe you're short. I'll make these numbers up. Maybe you're short the 80-70 put spread.
Mm-hmm.
And so your risk line is the 80, and you're looking to cover the risk line. So you're looking to pay, you're looking to buy the 80s, and the 80s might be offered at, some time went by, the stock moved up. Maybe the 80s are offered at a nickel. So you're, hey, I want to pay a nickel. I'm going to go. But maybe the 85s are offered at a nickel, right? Or maybe the 85s are offered at, maybe 6 cents.
Right.
So, you can go in and you can pay, say you go in and you try and, maybe you bid in the middle somewhere, you kind of, work it and you buy the 85 for a nickel. And now you effectively have spent the same nickel,
same money,
but you have the benefit of the $5 spread, which may or may not come to fruition. I mean, you never know. You're getting something for nothing. You're getting the benefit of a $5 spread for literally $0. The 5 cents is a sunk cost. And then you could just kind of keep that thing going. Say maybe you got to pay 7 cents for the 85. Well, now you're paying 2 cents for that benefit. You might say, hey, that's good. I might say it's okay. And the next person might say, hey, no, I don't really want to pay anything for it. And that's up to them. Which one's better? At some price, CP, the big P word, right? At some price, it doesn't become better. At free, at a nickel, yeah, it's better. At 10 cents, I don't know. Maybe not, right? I mean, the world balanced it by the price.
That's right. So all good points, but the thing that we want for people to see, that if at any time somebody tells you, I'm making up stuff here, the futures contract is better than the stock because, or the $100 call is better than the 105 call because, or options are better than bonds because, it is false. Because of what? Price. That's the whole point, is that the market recognizes those benefits and they build it into the price, and now you can no longer say it's a benefit. So another quick
think about this. Here's another one, right? So if you are you're a client and you got whatever you got, right, your retirement account, and you go to a wealth advisor who's kind of on the ball, they're not going to put you 100% into equity. They're going to look at your age. They're going to look at what you're trying to do. They're going to put at least some of it, which is going to change as you get older, into the bond market. Well, why are they doing that? They're doing that because there's a price to be paid. We call it opportunity, we call it risk, call it whatever you want. But the point is one's not better than the other. Each will serve its purpose in the scheme of your goal and what you're trying to get accomplished there.
Absolutely. So if we go to another quick plug here, please remember, check it out right after this, marketrebellion.com/get started. So let's talk a little bit about some out of industry examples here. Again, I've used this many times before. Football bet, or pick whatever pro sport you want. So if one team is favored over another, and even that's kind of a big if, we don't really know for sure. Take the Chiefs and the Phillies, for example, right? Just because the crowd felt that the Chiefs were favored doesn't mean that they are, or that they're going to end up that way. But at any point, there's an opinion prior to an earnings report or prior to whatever is going on in the market. But the key is here, back to football. If one team is viewed as favorable over another, who wants to bet on the underdog? Why should I take the bad side of the bet?
And sometimes you say, oh, that team stinks and this team's great, and this team is going to, the second team is going to be the favorite. But suppose you have like two pretty close teams, and how do we actually define which one's the better one? Like, what do we do? Just think of the real world. What do you do? This guy's pretty good. This team's pretty good. They're both in the playoffs. Everybody's got this one. What do? We look at the point spread. We go to the point spread. When we look at the point spread, we can see what the world is saying about who's the favorite and who's the dog.
Yep. And so that's exactly it. The point spreads we use to equalize the bet. If everybody thinks that team A is far better than B, you've got no market. Nobody wants to bet on B. So how are you going to say that, oh, I'm going to take the favored side of the bet? See, that's getting back to this point when people say, oh, this is better. Well, not once you account for the point spread. That's the whole point.
Right.
Look at the word there, equalize. So the greater the point spread, the harder it is for the favored team to win. So let's use blue and red. Blue is favored. Everybody wants to bet on blue. The seesaw is not in balance. So now the bookies or whatever are betting, Vegas, whatever, says, let's try a 3-point spread. And we start getting fewer people to bet on blue, some more to bet on red.
Yep.
Still not quite in balance, at least in this example. So we go, okay, well, let's try 5 maybe. And we go, okay, well, more people jumped from blue to red, but still not in balance. Now, again, for the people who don't understand price or point spreads, what if we went too high? See, that's what people are forgetting. You could put a price that's too high. What if we do a 10-point spread? You might get this. Now what's happening? Everybody thinks that the blue team is going to win.
Going to the other team.
But if you're going to give me 10 points and I'm going to the other team, you're going, but wait a minute. What are you not getting here? Blue is better. It's better. What are you not see? You're going, yes, but not after you account for price or point spread. And that's what a lot of just these amateurs do who constantly pound the table about saying that something is better.
And in our world, Bill, like what are some of the examples that we could use instead of this point spread thing? They could be like an interest rate, right? Maybe if you're talking about longer dated options and where you are in the curve. It could be gamma, right? Maybe you're looking for gamma, and the longer dated one that won't really have it. You know, I mean, the list just goes on. You know,
Sure.
do you want
Lots
more
of different
delta? Do
ways
you
we
want
can
less delta? Do you want more leverage, higher leverage? Right? Any one of these characteristics of options can be substituted for this, you know, this point that example here.
So let's say that we come back and we go, okay, let's try 7 points. And now let's say we get it in balance. This is what is happening with Vegas or a bookie. I mean, you shouldn't look at this and go, man, that market maker's ripping me off, or that bookie's ripping me off. He put a 7-point spread here. No, he didn't. He was just trying numbers out of the air until he got the market to balance. All of you are the people who think that there's a 7-point spread. So now that we've got the seesaw in balance, in other words, an equal number of buyers and sellers, what can we say about these two teams?
I'd say they're equal.
In other words, price has equalized the advantage. That's the whole point.
They're equal with the points.
We can't tell them apart. If you make it more than 7, like 8 or 9 or 10, what's going to happen?
Well, one's going to be better.
Now the red's going to be favored. If we make it less than 7, now blue's going to be favored.
Yeah.
The crowd is going to balance when they go, you know what, I'd be willing to take either side of that bet. All right. So now let's try one last one here. We normally don't do this, but a little pop quiz for everybody out there. Which is better? Okay, well, the word better should be a clue to your answer. We're going to look at long stock this time and a long call. Okay, now, what are some reasons what do you think would be the number one reason that people are going to say the long call is better?
Well, look, I'm thinking about what just happened, you know, in the past month or two.
Mm-hmm.
All right, they're going to say the call is better because you know, it's lower in price, the leverage
Limits your downside,
you know, blah blah blah. But right,
but if you can identify
call.
things that are better about it, it should cost, you know, you're going to have to pay for that.
How about implied volatility? All right, can we talk about that? I mean, is that part of the equation here?
GameStop at 650%, you're going to go out there and buy puts? I doubt it. I'd rather short the stock.
Yeah, look, if the VIX is trading at 35, 60, 30, you know, make a number up, 35, let's say 35, which is where it was a few weeks ago, right? A couple weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
You know, mid-April, I kind of, not the dates are really squeezing together a little bit, but, you know, sometime mid-April, when the VIX was on its way back down to 35, do you still want to pay? Do you still want to pay for those options? Now, are there ways around it? Yeah, you know, you can push it further in the money and you can get less extrinsic value, and then it really doesn't really matter all that much anymore. But of course, now you're buying more intrinsic value. So
right now you've got the risk of delta risk. Right.
Then you got your delta risk. So, you know, look, which is better? The answer to me, how about this? Yeah. I mean, you know, it depends. It just depends. There's always going to be a price to be paid for the benefit.
So let's take a look at it graphically. So here's our risk graph for long shares of stock. Shares of stock are just delta 1, gamma 0, gamma, fancy word for that there's no curvature in it. Stock is currently trading for 100, so it's just straight line up, 45-degree line, dollar for dollar up, dollar for dollar down. But now let's overlay this better call option. We're going to use the at the money, and it's better because it's got better leverage. It has downside. It's just better. That's just, you can't deny it. Well, wait a minute. We can deny it because of what?
It looks like you don't make as much money on the upside.
Don't make as much. The stock, if we had a crystal ball, we can see the stock will outperform the call because in this case, I put a $5 price on it. Now down to the downside, the red line sits above the black. It loses less, right? They both lose, but the red line loses less.
Yeah, which is a benefit.
Which is a benefit, but
Yes.
that's the cost of the benefit. The cost
gotta
is
pay for
here
that
that
benefit.
you're giving up the upside.
Right. And maybe you don't want to give up the upside. And maybe you're okay with not giving up. Maybe you're okay with the downside. Right. Maybe you just had a market that went down 35%.
Right, exactly. And you're saying I'm willing to take that down. That's part of what I'm
okay
doing.
with the downside because I think the damage is done or mostly done, or I'm getting close to being done, or every day we go down, we are closer to the bottom than we were before. So, maybe that black line on the left that Bill's showing you is okay with you. To not give up that red line upside, right? And in that case, the stock would be better.
The argument comes down to price that I'm paying for the 100 call, not that the calls are better. You just it's just wrong. It's just absolutely wrong. So now let's look at another interesting pricing principle. What's the maximum price? Remember I said there is a price for anything that's too high. What's the maximum price for a call option? Well, it turns out to be
stock price.
No matter what strike what's the maximum price for the 50 call? Stock's at 100, 100. Maximum price for the 90 call, 100. The current stock price is the maximum price that any call could trade for. So let's put our $100 call priced at 101. Now here's the risk graph for the stock in black. Here it is for the call in red, and we can see that it's kind of hard to tell, but the black line sits just above that red by $1, and that tells us it's an ARB. How would you ARB this, Stu, if we're going to buy the stock and
I'm going to get in line to buy the stock and sell the call all day long,
which is called a
which is what?
Called a covered call.
Covered call.
Right.
Covered
and
call.
So here's what it looks like, and notice that it's kind of, sorry about that. Switched it to spotlight mode somehow here. There we go. You can see it's hard to tell, but that is $1 above zero.
Yeah. No matter where the stock goes.
No matter where the stock goes, you are absolutely going to make money. So it's an ARB. So there we go. No matter how many of the benefits we just touted about the $100 call, if the price is too high, now the call is a guaranteed winner, a guaranteed loser, and the stock is the winner.
Here's a funny way to say it. How about if you have a zero strike price?
Yep.
With the stock at 100. Would you pay 101 for that call?
Exactly. Right. So even if you push the strike price all the way to zero, which is what we're looking at here, the very most that call could trade for would be the stock's price.
100.
So the point is that yes, we can always push price to some level where it absolutely flips. The thing that you were pounding the table about as being better is not only better, it flipped to the worst side. So if you're not accounting for price, you're going about it the wrong way. So lesson number 2, if somebody is pounding the table, this is better. It's just, there's no argument about it. It's just better, but they're not saying it's better because of the price. They're just giving you a blanket statement. It's just better. That is absolutely 100% mathematically wrong. And that's going to get people into trouble who think that, let me just search for better. Okay, and we just want to make sure that everybody understands that, not just our people in Q&A. So here we go, Stu. The May 100 call is better than a May 105 call. It's not what? It's different. It's not better. Why? Because of price. So we hope that helps.
All over. It's all over, everyone. It's not just in finance. It's not just in the options market. I mean, it's in the supermarket, right? So, like, you're going to pay $1.50 for a loaf of bread, or do you want to pay $4 for a loaf of potato bread? I like potato bread, but am I going to pay another $2.50 for it?
Right.
I don't know. Right? Which one's better? Personally, I think the potato bread is better, but
evidently a lot of people do too. Of course, that could be a supply issue thing, but all things equal, say, oh, well, people have bid that price higher.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the thing is that we have to account for price. And we just find too many times that people are making decisions and pounding the table about their favorite characteristic and saying that the option
that's really it, isn't it, Bill? They're really just isolating one
characteristic that they find better and say that calls are better than stock because they have limited downside.
Because they have limited, and they're not accounting for other characteristics which are present.
Right. So we hope that that gives you some really good things to think about. There are going to be things you're not going to hear on other channels out there where people just focus on making predictions. So we want to make sure that people, it's okay to have an outlook, but you need to know how to approach the strategies. And to do that, you need to understand price.
And by the way, everyone, in order to have that discussion, this is really a discussion that you have with yourself or maybe your trading group, right? In order to have that discussion, you have to be able to identify what those other characteristics are that you need to push into the equation, right? You can't really have that conversation unless you're not aware of what those things are. Then you can have an intelligent conversation.
Right. You need to know where the debates are going to be held, what the differences are. Otherwise, you're not going to.
Which is really like the crux of like the whole risk management thing, right? You got to know what you're talking about in order to have the discussion about risk. Where's the risk? We talk about it all the time. Where's the risk? Where'd the money come from? Where's it going? Why is it going there? You know, why is 4 to make 1 versus 1 to make 4? You know, which one's better? I don't know. Right. I don't know. Each has their merits.
Right. Yep. So anyway, we hope that gives you some really good things to think about. We're going to see a lot of our people here because, like I mentioned at the beginning, this is Tuesday. We'll see some of our groups here Tuesday at noon for our first one today, Stu. And we hope that some of you who are not part of Market Rebellion will join us. We have discussions like this twice a week, Stu and I do, with people just like you joining in breakout sessions to make sure that you understand all of the ins and outs of options. And so with that, we want to wish everybody a great 6 de Mayo here, the day after Cinco de Mayo, which is our what? Flash crash anniversary. So I guess this will be our flash crash anniversary special. So we hope everybody enjoyed it and you learned something. And we'll see you next Thursday for Coach's Corner, and we'll see you then.